Hi everyone, good evening. You're watching The Money Show on ET now as a part of the channel's Rise with India Primetime segment. I'm Mubina Kabasi and here's what we will be discussing today on the show. First up, we'll be talking, of course, about how to kickstart your new financial year, keeping in mind the right tone and the right connotations when it comes to financial planning, making sure that the money mistakes of FY20 are left behind in FY20 and you kickstart FY21 on a brand new and correct note. We'll also be taking on board your questions and queries that you may be having on mutual funds. I'm sure many of you are concerned because you anyways have been backed out of shape. And later on the show, we'll also be talking about the big banking merger and the plenty of questions that have come up because of the moratorium. So much confusion with SBI's FAQ, the Indian Banks Association's FAQ as well, spelling out different things. So what exactly does it mean? We will be talking about all of this right here on The Money Show. Well, let me first bring on board Mrin Agarwal then. She is going to be joining us to talk to us about the money lessons that we ensure we implement as we kickstart the new financial year. Mrin, always a pleasure having you with us on The Money Show. I want to start off by talking to you then about the New Year resolutions. And I say New Year because from a financial angle, 1st April is the new year. So as we enter into a new financial year, our tax year as well gets changed. And for businessmen also, it's a new financial year. What is the important budget planning, financial planning one should do for the next 12 months?
Well, I think in terms of a goal, and given the fact that we are seeing this situation right now, which none of us thought, at the beginning of March, I don't think any of us ever thought that we're going to be in such a situation where the markets are going to fall. And, there is so much of uncertainty all around us. So I think, the first thing that we really need to focus on is looking at putting financial security into place. So, as you said, you could have been really easygoing with your money and you may not have done investments till now. But I think what is really important right now is to take certain steps to ensure financial security for yourself, because the future is looking quite uncertain and you really don't know how the whole COVID-19 thing is really going to play out.
True. So I think, given that we are in this entire COVID-19 situation, unfortunately, a lot of our viewers may not have kept an emergency buffer in place. Don't you think, as we step into the new fiscal year and there's so much uncertainty around us, don't you think that should be step one, that you create an emergency buffer? And yes, if yes, for all our viewers who've not done this before, how much should be emergency cash which should be kept away?
Yeah, I think, the first thing that everybody needs to evaluate into their portfolio is a couple of things. What is your emergency cash? So, do you have at least 6 months of expenses? I just don't think that 3 months of expenses is enough anymore. And I think that, you should have 6 months of expenses kept aside in an emergency fund. It could be in fixed deposits, it could be in liquid fund, it could be in, if you have a lot of gold, it could be that. But I think other than that, you also need to have your contingency planning in place, which is number one, do you have the right amount of life insurance? And number two, do you have the right amount of medical insurance apart from what you get from, let's say, an employer? Because again, with the fact that there's going to be a lot of uncertainty and certainly job losses to come, it is very important for you to protect yourself medically. And for that, you need to ensure that you have the right amount of medical covered externally, so that even in case of a job loss, you still will not lose your medical cover. So I think contingency planning is the first thing that everybody needs to look at. And I think, it's a good time with everybody being at home and certainly having more time on their hands. They actually need to start by looking at, how are their overall finances looking? Do you have financial documentation in order, for example? Or, do you have everything digitally, right? So I think, you start with that, move to contingency planning, and then, of course, start evaluating your portfolio.
Okay, all right, understood. You know what? In fact, we've already started getting questions and queries. They've already started flowing in, Mrin. So I think I'll hand it to our viewers, Mrin. They seem to be pretty eager to ask you their questions. Our very first query is coming in from Rehan. He's joining us on the phone line. Hi, Rehan. Good evening. I hope you and your family are staying safe, staying indoors during this coronavirus epidemic. And I'm glad that you've taken this time out to get your finances in order. So tell us, how can we help you today?
Good evening, ma'am. Hello. Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Rehan.
I've been investing in Nippon India Small Cap Fund about 2,000 for the past 3 years, 2,000 rupees per month, that is. Along with that, I've been investing in HDFC Mid Cap Opportunities, 5,000 rupees per month for the past 2 years. SBI Blue Chip, about 7,000 rupees per month for the past 2 years. I have started with HDFC Nifty 50 Index Fund, 5,000 rupees for the past 1 year, and Mrin Asset Equity Savings Fund, about 20,000 rupees per month since the past 1 year. Since the new financial year is here, I was trying to look into my portfolio and restructure it. I wanted to go ahead with 4 new funds. If you can please suggest me a good Nifty Next 50 Index Fund, I want to invest 10K per month in it. A good multi-cap fund, I wanted to invest 50,000 rupees per month into it. A mid-cap fund for about rupees 5,000 per month into it, and a small-cap fund for rupees 10,000 per month into it. So I'll again start with my 40,000 per month investment, but I just want to restructure it into this good funds. If you can please suggest me any, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Well, Rehan, we are here to help you out, and it's a good thing, to annually review your portfolio. Yes, we say it's, investing in equity mutual funds is for the long haul. But, it does not mean that you don't keep a tab of what's happening in your mutual funds. Now, Mrin, he's got a nice collection, 1 small cap, 1 mid cap, 1 blue chip and 1 index fund. So he's got one from almost every variety. Maybe a multi-cap fund is missing. So that's something that he wants to add on. But, Mrin, he wants to add 4 more funds. So that would make a totality of 8 funds. So my question is, firstly, is it a good idea to have 8 funds in your portfolio? Secondly, I think he just has 1 large cap fund. And, if he'll add this one more, I think he just has 1 large cap fund to think of it. And there's, of course, even that Mrin Asset Equity Savings Fund. So what do you think of the split between, the small caps and mid caps as has been done by him right now? And, of course, in the future, since he wants to top up on his SIPs, which is, again, a great idea, how should he do so, Mrin?
Okay, so I think having 8 to 9 funds in the portfolio is too many funds. And ideally, what you need to do is that you need to basically look at the funds that you have and add on to those funds itself. Now, specifically, since he is considering, since he doesn't have a multi-cap fund, what I would recommend would be to invest in the Parag Parikh long-term equity fund, because that also gives him some international exposure, and it's a nice multi-cap fund to have in the portfolio. I think, since he already has a Nifty 50 fund going, I don't see the need to have another fund. Plus, he's already got a large cap fund. So I really don't see the need to have another large cap fund. So I would say, give your funds time to perform. And, this is where I would also like to talk about, like, the new year, when you're actually evaluating your fund performance. You first have to see how your fund has done against the category average. How is it done against the benchmark before you actually take a decision to move into another fund. So I think 2 years is a very short time frame. Do evaluate the performance of your funds versus the category benchmark. Versus the category average versus the benchmark. And also, I think, somewhere you also need to see that, are you, from an overall asset allocation perspective, are you too skewed to equity funds? I mean, do you think that you need to have some debt funds? So I think these are the things to look at. But in his case, specifically, the Parag Parikh fund is what I would recommend from a multi-cap perspective. And I would say that he should just continue on with the rest of the funds. Yes, there has been underperformance probably in some of the funds, but I would say still continue on with these and allocate to these itself.
All right, understood. So I hope, Rehan, this answer will help you with your financial planning process for the next financial year. We wish you all the very best. Okay, next up we have Aman Chopra from Delhi joining us on the phone line. Hi, Aman. Good evening. What's your query?
Movina, and good evening, Mrin. My question is, 2 questions are there. I have been investing in the mutual funds for the past for 3 months. It was the 80,000K SIP. One is Axis Multicap, 10,000. Mirai Focus Equity, 15,000. SBI Focus Equity, 20,000. DSP Equity Opportunities, 10,000. Invesco Small Cap, 10,000. Tata Large and Mid Cap, it's 15,000. I have enormous amount of PPF also and the PF by my company. Now, please tell me that my portfolio is right or is any changes required. And I want to add some also debt profile apart from my PF and PPF. I have some FDs also. And please suggest me the debt funds in which there should be no credit risk at this point of time and no duration risk. Please suggest me the funds of debt funds.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Mrin, how would you advise Aman?
So I think he has a lot of funds in the portfolio, right? He seems to be having a lot of focused equity funds. So do keep in mind that, given the focus, the focused nature of these funds, these funds could move either way for you. Either they could work for you or they may not work for you. I mean, as long as you're intending to hold these funds for long term, it's okay. But somehow I feel that there are too many funds in the portfolio. And at some point in time, you need to, 3 months is a very short period. So I think, closer to when you're closer to a 1 year period, you need to reevaluate your portfolio to see how it's doing. In terms of what you have in PPF and EPF, please remain invested in that, because even though the PPF rates have been reduced from yesterday, they still beat inflation. It's still a risk-free return. So please do not look at moving out from the PPF. Please remain invested in the PPF and in the EPF. In terms of debt funds where you don't want to have any credit risk or duration risk, I think you can look at the IDFC short-term plan. You would need to hold it for at least 3 years. So I think you could look at IDFC short-term plan, and you could also look at SBI short-term plan. These are two good funds that you could look at.
Okay, understood. So that's something that's being recommended by Mrin. And it's something that you should consider, Aman. Mrin, I actually had another question that I would like to talk to you about, and that's with respect to rejigging your portfolio. Like our first viewer and our first caller had told us that since it's the beginning of the financial year, I thought I'll give my portfolio a look. But the point is, when the markets are so bad, and there are many mutual funds whose NAVs have gone back to levels of 2014. That means 6 to 7 years of SIPs have just vanished. You could just say that. NAVs have been completely thrown out of shape. Is now a good time to sort of adjust your portfolio? I mean, ideally that, you should review your portfolio once a year. It could be the beginning of a financial year, the end of the financial year, the beginning of a new year, so on and so forth. But given these circumstances, is now even a good time to sort of give your portfolio a relook, because you'll be booking such hefty losses.
But, I think one of the bigger issues that I have seen is that with most people, they just tend to invest based on what's in trend, what's trending currently, right? So if you see at the beginning of the year, people were putting money in international funds. There was this huge move towards having large cap funds. Of course, there was a lot of money coming into arbitrage. And as you're seeing right now, the arbitrage opportunities are really very few at this point in time. And I think funds themselves are kind of putting out notes saying not to invest in arbitrage. So I do believe that, you should certainly do a review of your fund to see what is your asset allocation. So firstly, what is your debt and what is your equity allocations? Secondly, even the funds that you have invested in, for example, is there a goal that is actually tagged to it? Because many times what happens is that people are driven by the fact that, Acha, international fund is doing well, so let me just put some money out there. But the point is that if you don't have a goal to it and you don't know how long you can hold this fund, then you're going to be constantly very worried about the returns that the fund is generating. So I think it's a good time, to basically check your asset allocation, debt, equity, how are you placed. Secondly, within the funds, is there a goal that you've actually tagged this fund for? And then, of course, you just keep reviewing it. I don't think it's a good time to take an exit call right now, unless a fund has had more than 2 years of underperformance versus category average, I would not recommend exiting the fund at this point in time.
Okay, all right. So that's of course Mrin's advice when you're looking at reviewing your portfolio. Mrin, thanks so much for joining us then, and explaining this whole process of kickstarting the financial year on a positive note for your money.